Hey y'all, my name is Grace and welcome to Grace Adventures. So I have been busy these past couple of weeks trying to ride Kumba as many times as I could before it closed, and now it's closed. It closed August 2nd and I'm in the 7 stages of grief still, trying to cope that one of my favorite roller coasters closed. So insane stuff. And side note, if y'all want to know why Kumba closed, there's a link to the video in my description below where I talk about it. Fun stuff. At the time of me filming this video, in the 7 stages of grief, I am in between depression and testing because now we already have to start predicting what is going to replace Kumba, which is sad to think about already because at the time of me scripting and filming this video, it hasn't even been a week since Kumba closed, and I'm surprised I'm already making this video. Speaking of that, Busch Gardens Tampa is already hard at work when it comes to Kumba's successor. So let's timeline some things out. On Friday, July 31st, Busch Gardens Tampa put a box out as a teaser in front of the bumper cars. Now, what's in the box? Who knows? It's just lights and speakers. But what this box is communicating to us is Kumba's revenge. Kumba's Revenge will be the next ride to replace Kumba, and they called this an extension of the already legendary coaster. So more likely than not, Kumba's Revenge is most likely going to be a roller coaster because I think it would be really silly if Busch Gardens Tampa just randomly put a flat ride in the back of their park. Plus, they already have so much land that they could possibly use, which we will talk about later in this video. But next, on Saturday, August 1st, nothing changed with the box, but they decided to add another claw mark. I don't think this has much significance, but I think they did it for enhancing the theming. On August 2nd, Kumba closes, and around the week of August 3rd through the 7th, and definitely August 5th, B&M came out to cycle Kumba. Now, I am not 100% sure why they come out to cycle Kumba, but I'd imagine they'd want to do some tests on it to see how it's holding up in terms of ride quality and intensity, as well as surveying the ride and the surrounding area. I say that because there are markers all around the coaster and the employee parking lot that are most likely in place to start the demolition of the ride. The news for Kumba's Revenge will most likely stay the same until they start the demolition process and level out the area to see what area they're actually going to use for it. Now, let's dig a little bit into the Kumba's Revenge teaser box. The box on Kumba's Revenge also says the legend lives on. And you know what this made me think? This made me think that Kumba could actually be retracked. But why do you think that, Grace? Don't you think that this would be a bad idea for Busch Gardens Tampa to do, since they are in desperate need to attract new people and enhance their attractions already? Yes, low-key, yeah. But on a personal note, I wouldn't be opposed to retrack. I love Kumba. I think Kumba has one of the most intense and unique layout designs. So bring on the retrack. But logically, I don't know if a retrack is what Busch Gardens Tampa should be doing. Anyways, I got off track. So I don't know why, but the legend lives on made me think of Loch Ness Monster at its sister park, Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Loch Ness Monster closed the winter of 2023 and opened back up in the spring of 2024. And it had a major refurbishment where they enhanced the theming, and even premier rides replaced some of the track. And the crazy thing is that the OG manufacturer is Arrow, but But someone had to do it. And during that refurbishment period, the tagline for that was also "The legend lives on." Now, that's either coincidence or they really couldn't think of anything else. Loch Ness Monster is a pretty old and iconic ride as well. It opened back up in 1978, and it was the first coaster to have interlocking loops. So honestly, both coasters having the same tagline genuinely makes sense for each ride. This also goes back to if Kumba's Revenge is even going to be manufactured by B&M, and I feel like it most likely will. B&M manufactured Kumba, and I don't think any other ride manufacturer could pull off how forceful this ride needs to be in order to go in that direction. I feel like the parent company of Busch Gardens Tampa, United Parks and Resorts, has a great relationship with B&M as well. Busch Gardens Tampa has 4 B&M coasters in their park. Well, now 3. SeaWorld Orlando has 5 B&M coasters in their park, which is insane. I also feel like no other manufacturer could pull off the roar that Kumba produced either, which is also teased in the Kumba's Revenge audio box. I can't tell you because sometimes I would be over there near the Kumba's Revenge teaser box, and I would be thinking that Kumba's running, and it was just the box making that noise. And even when I was there Wednesday when it closed on August 5th, I thought they were cycling Kumba, and they were not cycling Kumba. It was the box. The biggest reason Kumba had the roar is from their box beam coaster layout that is iconic to B&M as well as the layout of the ride. Every time a coaster train went over the fins and rails of the track, it would produce vibrations into the spine of the coaster layout, which would also produce the sound. The reason you might not hear the roar in other B&M coasters is because it's filled with sand in the spines or rails. For some of the newer aged B&M coasters, the rails of the track might already be filled with sand during the production as they are building the ride. And the reason they fill the coaster track with sand is to reduce noise, especially if you are, for example, adjacent to neighboring homes. Kumba was built in 1993, so sound was not that big of an issue back then, and that means there was no sand to silence the roar. The point that I'm trying to get is I don't think Kumba's Revenge could be manufactured by anyone else because of the iconic layout design and the sound that it produces, but hey, never say never. Each coaster manufacturer has their own design layout for their track and the sounds that it produces, and it would just be weird if I saw Intamin or Vekoma just manufacture Kumba's Revenge. The other big reason why I think it's going to be a retrack is for budgetary reasons, depending on how much money they want to spend. So trying to do research, I don't 100% know how much they spent on Kumba back in 1993. For one, all I could find is that Congo River Rapids was $6 million to construct, and that opened in 1982. But then I put on my thinking cap and I searched up another B&M sit-down coaster that is located in Florida, the Incredible Hulk, located at Island of Adventure and Universal. So when researching that was rumored to have cost $40 million when it opened in 1999. And I low-key thought that was a bit much, right? So I adjusted that for inflation, and in 1993 that would have been around $34 million, and in 2026 that would have cost them $78 million. And I'm like, no way that would have actually cost them $34 million to construct. So I searched up the other B&M sit-down coaster in America that is still operating, and it's Wildfire, and it's located at Silver Dollar City. That cost them $14 million to construct in 2001, and in 1993 that would have been around $11 million. $11 million in 2026 would adjust to around $25 million, which makes a lot more sense. It just Universal, sometimes I forget Universal is on a whole nother level in terms of having an actual budget that they can work with. So a coaster that cost them $25 million might fit into the $100 million investment that Busch Gardens Tampa is working on these next couple of years. Things that are included in this $100 million investment are Wild Oasis, Lion and Hyena Ridge, new entertainment programming, food and beverage offerings, and seasonal events. This also includes Project Driftwood, aka the rumored mock water coaster that is going to be opening where Stanley Falls Flume closed in 2025. Now, what is interesting about this is that in their social media post talking about Kumba's closure, they said that Kumba's Revenge is a part of their $100 million investment. And is the retrack still possibly $25 million already? Or are they actually going to invest more into Kumba's Revenge? I only ask that because I feel like the only other viable option for Kumba's Revenge is that it opened as a Giga coaster. A Giga coaster is a roller coaster that is over 300 feet and does not exceed 400 feet. And this type of roller coaster has literally been teased by Busch Gardens Tampa, and almost every single person on social media has been asking Busch Gardens Tampa to build the Giga. A Giga coaster like Fury 325 at Carowinds cost $30 million to construct in 2015, and that would cost around $42 million in 2026. I also want to take Project Driftwood into consideration, and I know that's rumored to be a water coaster, but if it is a water coaster. Journey to Atlantis and SeaWorld San Diego opened in 2004, and that cost them $18 million to construct. And doing the math for inflation, in 2026, a water coaster would cost them $32 million. Regardless if it's a Giga or a retrack, in terms of money, I still feel like they could do one or the other, but that depends on if they want to spend $25 million or $42 million. Because if Project Driftwood is actually $42 million, that would take up around $57 million with the retrack or around $74 million with the Giga coaster. And I feel like that also depends on what they have already spent in terms of their money when it comes to things like Wild Oasis and Lion and Hyena Ridge. And if I'm being honest, Wild Oasis and the Lion and Hyena Ridge were low-key really cheap additions. I couldn't find out how much Wild Oasis or Lion and Hyena were, but I feel like I don't even have to give you numbers because Wild Oasis is literally a revamped area of treetop trails, and Lion and Hyena Ridge is just an animal habitat with this weird cheap themed board inside one of the caves. I was really confused about it. Anyways, I feel like if Busch Gardens Tampa does get the Giga, I feel like there's a couple things that they have to do beforehand. Firstly, they need to level out the land. Obviously, they need to clear out the land where Kumba is, but they really need to make it more secure for the possible future sinkholes. One of the prevalent problems of why Kumba was closed back in November of 2024 to September of 2025 is because of sinkholes near the footers of the Cobra Roll. And I can imagine other parts of Kumba were also suffering from sinkholes as well, but we were clearly able to see the Cobra Roll via the bridge to Congo River Rapids. What I really think they should do after they level out Kumba is lay out as much concrete as needed for the next ride, regardless if it's a Giga or not. And I can already tell that's going to be a lot of money. And if needed, they might take out Congo River Rapids. Congo River Rapids has been at Busch Gardens Tampa since 1982, but it's been closed for a fat minute since the beginning of summer of 2026 because the cave with the waterfall collapsed And I've been hearing so many different things about this ride. On one hand, I've heard that Congo River Rapids will be opening up soon, and on the other hand, I heard that Congo River Rapids is going to be closing. Personal opinion, I think it will be opening up soon. You know, we'll see though. Who honestly knows though, because they could be opening up Congo River Rapids for a year or two and then shutting it down, and they will use that land for Kumba's revenge. Kumba right now is around 3.5 acres. With Congo River Rapids included in that, it's around 6.9 acres. But if you take all of that land with the lakes behind the Congo area, altogether it's around 17 acres, which it's a lot of land. In terms of the lakes, I am not 100% sure if the county requires them, but they would most likely have to be filled with cement. Compare this with Fury 325. Fury 325 is about 9 acres large. Another Giga named Pantherian at King's Dominion is around 8 acres large. So if Busch Gardens Tampa wants to actually build a Giga, they need to make sure that they have the room for it. Which they do, but we'll see what happens. I feel like regardless if this is going to be a Giga or not, they need to make sure they incorporate some of the core and iconic elements from Kumba. Gigas can honestly be pretty forceless compared to something like Kumba. Not in a bad way, but your typical Gigas are tall and fast with coaster elements that don't resemble anything like Kumba. Kumba had 7 inversions, which means you went upside down 7 times. If this Giga has no inversions, I feel like I'm gonna be a little bit concerned of how this is an extension of the already legendary coaster. Like, you don't need all 7 inversions, but at least keep the iconic ones like the corkscrew and the loop around the lift hill if that's even physically possible. But we got B&M making Tormenta, and we got Mach making the Project Purple coaster that I have no clue how to pronounce. So inversions on a Giga are very much possible. One more thing is that they also need to make sure that this ride is high capacity and reliable. And B&M is a pretty reliable manufacturer, so I feel like that's another reason why they would choose B&M over other manufacturers. Another thing is that if this is manufactured by B&M, we gotta remember that B&M and Claremont Steel, located in Ohio, just cut ties, and if the news is right, it's because Claremont shut down its steel factory plant. Now, this happened 2 months ago, and I don't know if B&M has anyone else making their coaster track and supports right now, or if they hired anyone else, but for all we know, this could have been the only supplier for B&M Steel that we know of. And I think it was the only supplier that they used for B&M Steel and their coasters. If Busch Gardens Tampa were to use B&M would have to either buy steel from overseas or find a new place in America to make it. And if they shipped it from overseas, it would probably cost them a lot of money to do that. B&M's last major project was Tormenta, and that was their Giga Dive coaster that opened at Six Flags over Texas. So who knows if they are going to take on another project here soon, or if they are going to take a little break. Just for funsies, I'm going to list out some of the other replacements that I've heard other people tell me that they think could possibly be Kumba's revenge. B&M Hyper, a Mach Giga, because of Project Purple, Intamin Giga, Tilt Coaster, Giga Tilt Coaster. Not gonna lie, I came up with that one. And I don't know. I've heard pretty much everything, especially Giga. Everyone wants a Giga, and that's totally understandable. The timeline for Kumba's revenge is pretty unpredictable at the moment. I'm not gonna lie, I was really hoping that Busch Gardens Tampa would have opened the rumored water coaster in 2026 already, because there was only one water ride operating in the park until it became 0 when Congo River Rapids closed this summer. Ironic that it closed during the summertime, which is like absolutely insane. I guess if it opens soon, it'll open right back in time for Labor Day. Woo! Look at those Labor Day crowds. So for a park in Florida, they are in desperate need for a water ride. Desperate. So if I'm predicting the timeline here, the spring or summer of 2027 would be the goal for Project Driftwood to open up. And then in 2028 or 2029, that would be the goal for Kumba's Revenge. What do you guys think Kumba's Revenge will be? I would love to hear y'all's thoughts in the comments below. And I would also love to hear you guys' thoughts on my thoughts of what Kumba's Revenge will be, whether it'll be a Giga or a retrack. Let me know if you guys think I'm too far-fetched with some of my ideas. And hopefully we can get another update for Kumba's Revenge here soon. I'm gonna try my best to be at the park when Kumba is being demolished. Yeah, that'll be the really emotional watch for sure. And with that, thank you guys for watching Grace Adventures, where every day is a ride, and may your next adventure be epic.